Hello everybody, this is Warp26, and it is October, and it is close to that time of the year where it's Halloween, and with the new Halloween sequel coming out this Friday, October 19th, I thought it'd be a good idea to do a Halloween movie franchise ranking. So we're going to rank, in my opinion, what the best Halloween movie was. We'll start from the worst to, the best, and then we'll go from there. So, first off, I'm a huge fan of the Halloween franchise, always have been. Michael Myers is an iconic killer. The story arc that they have throughout the franchise is quite, it's well done in my opinion. They've involved, a lot of, the different character developments that were consistent. Outside of Part 3, which was a standalone movie, but we'll kind of discuss, the different parts of each movie as we go along. So first off, we're going to start with our first selection. Now, in my opinion, the worst Halloween film, in my opinion, is Halloween Resurrection. So we're just going to throw that as the worst, and we'll start off from there. Okay, so reasons for me not liking Halloween Resurrection as much as I would like the other films in the franchise. To me, it just, it seemed like it kind of got away from what was important. The involvement of Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Laurie Strode, should have been more involved as opposed to what had happened in the beginning part of the film where she had a quick cameo, and then they just moved on to a new group of characters that were going to be stalked by Michael Myers. Well, mind you, there were some cool concepts with Halloween Resurrection. I thought it was really cool to have the reality TV aspect to the actual movie where the characters involved were a part of a reality show, and they were just trying to survive in the Michael Myers house overnight because of all the mythology of the character and all the stories linked to Michael Myers. So they had some good ideas. Where they fell short was the character development wasn't very good. They didn't put enough time into it, and characters that were really likable ended up being killed almost instantly, and then they saved the boring characters to kind of make it to the end and battle Michael Myers, if you will. So the movie fell flat on a few angles. It had some good ideas, as I had said. Some of the kills are really cool too. I mean, the part where he crushed that guy's skull just by squeezing his head, it was awesome. That was a really cool death scene, but outside of that, the acting was poor, the development of the characters was not very good, and it was also the movie that kind of stopped the gap from, Halloween movies being brought out, afterwards. They had a long period of time between, Resurrection and then eventually the Rob Zombie movies, which also, I'm not going to include the Rob Zombie movies within the franchise rankings. To me, they're just, a separate thing in comparison to the actual franchise itself. So yeah, we're done with number 7. Resurrection absolutely was the worst. Now, coming in at number 7 is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now, there were some cool ideas with the film, like the telekinetic link between Michael and Jamie. That was kind of cool, and they continued the story arc from Part 4, but the ending of Part 4 didn't really fit in with Part 5. It was kind of weird. I don't want to give away anything that had happened at the end of Part 4, but it just didn't really make sense the way that transition happened. Mind you, it had its moments. There were some cool death scenes in the film. The story was kind of weak, though, and the acting wasn't really all that great. And I think that the bright spot in the film would have been Donald Pleasance as his over-the-top portrayal of Dr. Loomis, as it normally is. So in that respect, I would say Part 5 to me didn't have enough character development. The story fell flat a lot, and they could have done much more with it to continue the story arc from Part 4, but they did not. So with that being said, yeah, that would be number 7 for me. Now we're going to move on to number 6 on the list. And number 6 for me would have to be, I would say, H2O, Halloween 20 Years Later. Yeah, the reintroduction of Jamie Lee Curtis into the film, being the main character, was really cool. I thought that was a nice thing to kind of revisit franchise 20 years later. What I didn't like about it is that they could have done so much more with like an anniversary film, if you will. They could have had more development with the other characters, not just focused on Jamie Lee Curtis.
character, which is Laurie Strode. You know, mind you, she did a good job in the film. She was probably the best part of it. You know, and LL Cool J also as a security guard, he was a highlight in the film. I just didn't think for a film that was, you know, trying to capitalize on like the nostalgia of the franchise. You know, the death scenes weren't very like, you know, elaborate. Like they weren't very like well done. Like they could have done, like you know, like a more of a like a tribute to like the original movie where there were more like methodical in the killings, like you know, and the stalking of the characters. I didn't really do that in this one, so I was disappointed. So it could have been much better. So yeah, number 6 for me is definitely Halloween H2O. And so now we're going to move on to number 5, and number 5 for me would have to be Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, I know that a lot of people like this film as a standalone film in the franchise. I don't hate Halloween 3. I just don't like how the narrative changed from focusing on Michael Myers to like a totally different like story arc. So I know that the movie franchise originally was planned to be like an anthology of some sort where they were going to do stories revolving around Michael Myers and then switch it to like another theme, which was the idea behind Season of the Witch. Now, when people went into the film, like in 1983, I believe it was released. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 83. But what had happened was people had the idea that the film would have Michael Myers, and it did not. A lot of people are disappointed. You know, it did feature some good acting. The story itself could have been like, you know, just a standalone film and not like linked to Halloween. Which is why like it was very confusing for me to add it as part of the Halloween like series. But you know, I think it's got a cult following now. Like a lot of people, you know, find it to be one of the better sequels. Myself, I don't find it to be like one of the better films in the franchise, just because it doesn't have the involvement of Michael Myers, and to me, it's disappointing because of that. Like the story, as I said, is very well done on its own, like as a separate movie, not linked to the franchise. And the acting in the movie was quite good too. There were some really cool, you know, and the chemistry between the two characters in the film, like, were really good. Like the main two characters there. But you know, the movie itself, you know, it just didn't really fit into the franchise for me. So that's why I'm going to put it at number 5. So, and from there on, we're going to move to number 4. And it's Halloween 6, and this is The Curse of Michael Myers. Now, for me, it's actually, you know, it's high up on the list for me. I actually like it. A lot of people didn't like The Curse of Michael Myers. There was like a storyline that revolved around a cult that was continued from 4 and 5, which I thought was really cool. It was a different approach on like the character and the mythology of Halloween. And I thought like the acting wasn't too bad either, and also it was Donald Pleasance's last performance as Dr. Loomis, and he was such an iconic character, not just in the franchise but in horror like genre in general. Like the character Dr. Loomis was amazing, so it was also his last film. Also, was the introduction of Paul Rudd into films. Like he did some TV work and that, but this was his first film, and he did quite well as somebody who was like, you know, like a counter to Michael Myers. And the character was really well done. The character development in the film was really well between all characters. Some of the death scenes are really cool. And overall, it was just a really cool film. Like Halloween 6 definitely is one of my favorites of the franchise. So we're going to throw it at number 4. And next we're going to move on to number 3. And that would be Halloween 2.
About part 2 is, one, it's, you know, the continuation of the story of Laurie Strode, and not just that, like it continues the film from where the first movie left off, so it's still Halloween night, and it kind of just continues into what has just been a nightmarish like experience for Laurie Strode, and you know, the aftermath of what's gone on throughout the night. And it's really cool because they do, like, you know, kind of focus on what the relationship between like Laurie and Michael is, because you know, they're found out that they're siblings in this film, which is discontinued through the new film that's coming out, and the new Halloween film ignores everything before it. And this is also the reason I'm doing this Halloween rankings, is the new film coming out is supposed to be quite good from what I understand. So Halloween 2 has a lot of like, you know, like cool like story arcs from the first, and the continuation of Laurie Strode is, you know, it's great. It's Jamie Lee Curtis. She does the job very well, and the film itself is pretty good. Donald Pleasance is great again. So in that respect, you know, we have to look at it as like, you know, it's a true sequel. In my opinion, a lot of people didn't like it. I thought Halloween 2 was good. And with the new one coming out, they, you know, they did a lot of different things. They didn't continue any of the story from like Halloween 1, and then from that point on, they just ignored everything. Which, you know, you could probably, I know they're throwing like some nostalgic like flashbacks and you know, hints to like films before, even though they're not part of like you know, the story arc anymore, or the franchise, if you will, with the new film. But Halloween 2 to me was good. I liked the hospital setting. I thought it was a good environment to kind of move the sequel from. Like, realistically, like Jamie Lee was, you know, as somebody who had been through hell would be in this film. Like, you know, she's like a strong, and what I always liked about Jamie Lee Curtis in the films is that she's such a strong female lead, you know what I mean? And she just takes capture of it in this film, in my opinion. So that's number 3 for me. Number 2, we're gonna go with Halloween 4, and that's
the return of Michael Myers Part 4. And now, like, the good thing about Halloween Part 4 is it gets a lot of things right with the return of Michael Myers in the film franchise. Like, and obviously it's you know, it was just a movie removed from Part 3, which didn't focus on Michael Myers whatsoever. So to see him return in the you know, the role of Michael Myers is great. Like, to have like the film go back to its roots, the franchise, I should say, going back to its roots, it was a good move. And they did it right. Like, the characters are very likable in Part 4. And then they introduced like a family link to Michael Myers, which is the niece. Yeah, it was the niece. Her name was Jamie. And yeah, I think that they did a really good job on trying to see like where the film could really go from like where the initial setup of like you know, Laurie, and then the you know, battle with Michael Myers, the survival on her end. I think in this movie it was mentioned that she had died or whatever. As we learned later in the franchise, she didn't die. She was still around. But they give you the idea that Jamie Lee's character, Laurie Strode, had been killed off, and that the niece is, you know, now linked to Michael, and he's trying feverishly to, like, you know, locate her, Michael, in this film. And it's a lot of like cat and mouse between, like, you know, the niece and Michael. And as I said, the character development's really good. You could see how strong the bond can be between the characters in the film. So they did really good direction with this film, in my opinion. So that's why it sits at number 2 for me. Like, it was definitely like the best sequel, in my opinion, to like the original. That is, of course, excluding the one that is coming out this Friday, October 19th. Don't forget to see it. It's a new Halloween film directed by Danny McBride, or he's at least a director on the film, which I've only heard good things about the new Halloween. But getting back to Halloween 4, it's just a great film, and it just stands like above all the other sequels, in my opinion, up until the new film coming out now this Friday. So yeah, definitely I would say 4. And now we're absolutely at the point now where we're going to the number 1 Halloween film. And what else could it be? I mean, like, if you look at the Halloween franchise, like, Halloween 1 wasn't just the best in the franchise, it was a trendsetter for so many different films. So Halloween 1 is our top Halloween film. And for so many reasons, like, the film Halloween is just, oh man, it's amazing. It was an example to so many films that came after it. And the direction, the steady direction by John Carpenter is seen throughout the film. You have the great acting by Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasance, and even the side characters. You become involved. You grow attached to them because of the way they develop. They don't just have a killing spree, you know, within the first like 10-20 minutes. They slowly build up the tension in the film, and that's what's so great about it, is you see the methodical approach by Michael Myers and how he literally stalks like each one of these unsuspecting teenagers, and it just leads to probably the greatest slasher film, in my opinion. It's one of the best horror films ever, you know. And so that's my takeaway on it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Halloween franchise is it's great, and it's also in relation to the new Halloween coming out. Don't forget to see it this Friday, October 19th. And that's Wharf 26. That's my top Halloween films ranked from worst to first.
I cast you out! Unclean spirit!
Shove it up your ass!
In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ! It is he who commands!